WW7KC.
Good evening, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society net on the 08 machine. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. The Western Washington Amateur Television Society is a group of amateur radio enthusiasts that take to the airways with fast scan television. We have a repeater located up on Cougar Mountain. We transmit on 70 centimeters. It's a crossband repeater. It spits out images at 1.2 gigahertz. To find out more about the Western Washington Amateur Television Society, please Google WW7ATS. That's Google WW7ATS. That will take you to our homepage. There you'll see a background information on our unit. Also, the frequencies we transmit on. And also, you will find a link on our front page that takes you to YouTube. That link will take you to the streaming of our nets held Wednesdays and Saturdays between 8 and 9 o'clock. Also, we'd like to thank the SeaTac Repeater Association for letting us use WW7STR's repeater 147.08 with a specific tone of 103.5 for this net. Again, 103.5 for this net. And this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society net. I'll pause in case anybody has emergency traffic or needs to make a contact before the net gets fully underway. This is Dave, KD7ZYM. Hearing none, welcome to the Western Washington Amateur Television Society net. Again, I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. Checked in by video link is KD7QKU, Ron, Lee, N7KC, Bob, K9PQ, Richard, K7ITX, Jim, N7QO, and myself, Dave, KD7ZYM. Does anybody else like to check in?
Dave, this is James in Northeast Bellevue. Whiskey, Uniform, 7 November.
U7 in, we have you. Thanks for checking in. Well, let's get the net underway. We'll start off with Ron, KD7QKU in Tacoma.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dave. KD7QKU here. Well, I suppose everyone's excited to hear the news that Seahawks have a new coach. So, it'll see, I guess he's really young. I think his name's Mike McDonald, maybe. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. So what else has been going on? Well, I had the electrician come over this week. There was this floodlight in the backyard that turned on and off with one of those electric cells, you know, dusk and dawn. But it wasn't on a switch. I couldn't turn it off. And he had, when he was here doing some other stuff, I had brought it up, but I'd like to have it put on a switch. Sometimes I like to turn it off. It's because it's on the north side of the house underneath the soffit. It stays on lots, even on dark days. And so he had told me that it was a kind of a botched-in job. They hadn't put in a junction box or anything when somebody had wired it in, and it would probably be a good idea to take care of it anyway. So anyway, he didn't have time at that time, but he said next time he had some time and I still wanted it done, he'd come over and fix it. So he called me Monday, I guess, said he had a cancellation and he had a couple hours. So he came over, put in a junction box, and run a wired down the outside wall and put in a switch. So now I can turn it off if I want to. It's pretty bright, and say if the neighbors back of us, they were out on their deck, it would probably be glaring in their face all night, so might be nice. And if I ever want to take the telescope out in the backyard, it'd be nice to turn it off. So, and I don't know. He said he didn't think it used too much electricity anyway, but it's on a lot. So now I can control it, so that was good. So let's see, that's about the only thing that I've had happen around here. So turn it back to net for now, KD7QKU.
QKU. Well, let's go to Port Angeles and get a rain report from Lee in 7KC.
Okay, well, how are things working tonight? Am I getting in? Good, okay, well, it's in 7KC here, Lee in Port Angeles. Well, we did get some rain. Saturday night we got just a smidge over 1 inch, and that's the biggest rainfall we've had in a long time. And that almost brought January up to average for all January since we've been here. I have records actually for the last 8 years. I guess I'm going on my 9th year now of records. But we're going on our 10th year of being here. Can you imagine that? It just went so fast, you know. We all got 10 years older. Well, we won't, not quite 10 years yet. We will be this summer, which is coming fast. So anyway, yes, so we did get some rain, and it was very welcome. We haven't had anything like that in a long, long time, so we're very pleased. What else is new? Not a lot. I'm busy all the time. Oh, yes, we have a case of sugar ants. Yeah, we've been invaded by sugar ants. And to save me, I cannot find where they're getting in the house. I think it's the crawl space. I think they're inside the crawl space and come up. They're on the south side, and they're getting into the kitchen and the upstairs bathroom. So today, in a box delivered by UPS, was a box of Maggie's Farms ant bait traps, and then I also got a bottle of the squeeze gel. And so I've deployed the first one tonight, so we're going to see what happens. But, well, I'll tell you, the amazing thing that those little guys can smell, they're just itty bitty little things, you know, and they can pick up on a drop of orange juice, you know. They'll find a drop of orange juice, and you come down in the morning, there'll be 100 of them there. And they got a trail, and I've just sealed up all kinds of stuff. So finally, we'll see how this works. Now, the idea here is not to kill them on the spot, but they feast on that stuff and take it back to the mothership, and then they all get to share in it. It's supposed to do the colony in, and we'll see how that works. So I'm out of time, so I'll send it back. Yeah, I think Jim's out there, Covington Jim. So hi to him, and James as well. So good to see you guys. Back to you, Dave, at 7KC, Port Angeles.
KC, the executioner. Well, nice having you aboard. Let's go to Bob, K9PQ.
Hit the wrong button. Well, it's good to see everybody. Yeah, I missed last Saturday. I was at another Gaming in the Suburbs group, a friend of mine in Renton, as part of our Gaming in the Woods group. He does this a few times a year, and we all go to his place, and gosh, he must have had about 12, maybe 15 people there this last time, so it makes a real good group. We get several tables going at once. Some very big games and some smaller, just a few people. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and that was my big deal last Saturday. Not a whole lot going here outside of that. I'm struggling really to come up with much else that's of interest to say. So I'll just send it back. I will say good luck with the sugar ants, and congratulations, Ron, on getting the control of that light. I'm very much that way too. You know, I mean, automation is great, but I at least want an override to the automation, and I'm usually just fine with handling it manually and leaving automation out altogether. Okay, back to net, K9PQ.
Thanks for that. And get an idea in here again. This is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society net on the 08 machine. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. Let's go to Richard in Kent, K7ITX.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the sugar ants. I think I have the same problem in the ham shack, but or in the whole dang house, actually. But it's usually in the nicer weather. I haven't seen any around. If in fact I'm even talking about sugar ants, they're just little tiny, the tiniest things you ever saw. And it's just like you said, Lee. They kind of gang up and they make a little road. Yeah, make a little road. And so I was intrigued by one of your traps you referred to as the squeeze gel. Well, maybe we use the same thing. It was these come in little plastic tube, like small canisters, and you snip or open one end, and it's almost like a maple, clear syrup inside. And so you just put it down like on a windowsill right by where I'm sitting, and they just go for it. You'll put it right in the middle of the road or whatever they have going on, and they'll climb right inside, and or they'll leave, they'll sniff around. You can't really, but when you wake up the next morning, the thing is just jammed with ants, just jammed, and it seems to work pretty good. You kind of put them in different strategic areas around the house, exterior door thresholds, places like that. So, sheesh. Yeah, those are pretty crazy things. And yeah, Ron, well, that's nice of you to be thinking of your neighbors in the backyard. I'm not as polite. Our backyard neighbor, there's a lot of trees and foliage and stuff, so I guess I never really thought I would be bothering him, and I like the lights on in the backyard. Just feel safer that way. So, but that's nice of you to think of them. And I guess last but not least, I've been talking about this exposed bone in my mouth, by my molar. Ron and I had some kind of development right about the same time involving the dentist, and in my case, I had to go to the oral surgeon. I was pretty sure my insurance wouldn't cover it. I'd already socked away before you know it about $4,000, to cover whatever was gonna. Yeah, I know, it's pretty scary. Well, so he's looking at it, poking around. Oh yeah, he saw it right away, and he says, "Okay, hang on for a second." So I gripped the armrest, waiting for some excruciating pain, because he was just, trying to see what it is. And the next thing I know, he's showing me this little 3mm white chunk of bone. And so it was already broken, and he just took it out, and I'll be darned. And my insurance did cover it. So, you know, $4,000 turned into $200, and I don't think he's seen a happier patient in his life. Because normally when I've ever gone to that guy, it's not pretty. So I'm just thrilled. So, and then get this. You know, he gives me a prescription, and I thought, oh boy, this is where they're going to really get me. So I go to the drugstore, $2. I can't remember the last time I paid $2 for anything. So, I don't know. I've been running victory laps the last couple of days, actually, so I'm pretty happy. And I got this weird kind of hole in my gum where this bone used to be. But I'm telling you, it's just it's a victory. K7ITX, back to net control.
K7ITX. What a great story. Let's go to Jim, N7QO in Covington.
N7QO. Thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Well, Dick, that's great. Excellent news. That piece was easily removed and no pain. And an extra bonus that you didn't have to pay an arm and a leg for a prescription. That's great. Let's see. Just curious, how's your finger doing there? Is that still clicking? I don't know. Well, let's see. Ron, thanks for mentioning about a new coach for the Seahawks. I had not yet heard that. I haven't watched the news. But we were kind of I was kind of thinking anyway that they might wait until after the Super Bowl and see what's going on and announce then. But sounds like they got someone and a younger fellow too. I don't know. Floodlight. Yeah, I have a porch light on a photo cell, and unfortunately it is also under an awning, so it's frequently on when it should not really be on. But I have a couple of lights like that, and I find that the photo cells on these things seem to break about every 8 or 10 years. I replaced the one twice already, and after that I just said the heck with it, and I wired it in directly, so now I turn the light on or off with the switch whenever I want to. Let's see. Lee, 10 years in PA? Man, it sure doesn't seem that long. I could believe 5 years, but wow, where does the time go? Ants. I have had similar problems with ants, and I always used it sounds like a similar product. Mine is called Amdro, and it's little granules that you sprinkle around where you think the ants are going to wander through, and they take that bait back to the nest, and it supposedly eradicates the whole nest. I've never had a problem with sugar ants over here at the house, but it worked well on the couple of other varieties of ants that I've had here. So with a little luck, that product that you've got will do the trick. It's just going to take a little while. And if the rains come, you may need to apply a little more of that stuff. So, but it sounds like you've got a handle on it anyway. And Bob, we missed you, but gaming, well, everything has its priorities, so it's nice for you to join us most of the time anyway. Glad you had some fun. Good to see you back. Back to you, Dave, N7QO.
Let's go on to James, WW7N in Bellevue.
This is WW7N in Northeast Bellevue. Thank you, Dave. Well, I didn't know the Seahawks had a new coach, so yeah, that's good. Probably good news. And I'm kind of somewhere between Bob and Ron. I like automated stuff, but I too like the off switch, preferably right at the source of the power. So someday, there'll probably be some kind of little struggle between me and my personal robot. And I'm trying to get to the off switch, and he's holding my hand back. 1 inch of rain in a 24-hour period. That must have been a very wet time, Lee, but I'm glad you got it, and I'm glad that it worked out. Ants. I actually prefer chocolate-covered ants, is the kind I like, but, that peppery, crunchy taste. But, if you guys like sugar ants, that's fine. I mean, well, actually, I think what you're all using is probably some form of boron or boric acid. And somebody who claimed to know what was going on there said the reason it works is because the ants get in their stomach and then they share it with other ants, like the queen, for example, back in the nest, and none of them can burp. So next time you rip off a good belch, and everyone looks at you, just say, well, I'm not an ant, okay? It saved my life. But around here in this neighborhood, ants always mean rotten wood. I was wrong. I got, okay, I'm wrong on this one, but there was a rotten stump, and it was just almost up close to the house. I mean, it was almost right next to the house, and so the ants were actually living in the rotten wood in the stump, but they were coming and going into the house for food. So in this neighborhood, which is not it's not Tacoma, and it's certainly not Port Angeles. But in this neighborhood, whenever someone tells me about ants, exterminators love this because they love to come in and spray all the other, spray for all sorts of things you don't need to have sprayed for. And they know, I think really good exterminators know that they're just treating a symptom. Until you find the rotten wood, they're just going to keep coming, at least in this neighborhood. But you guys are in a different area. Oh, gaming in the woods. That sounds like fun. And I'm glad you had a good time. Oh, one other thing I want to say about ants. During COVID, I had a friend, and she is an expert animal trainer. And these ants came into her house somehow. They were getting in. And so everybody thought she was crazy, but she was training the ants. She was giving them like little food rewards when they would follow certain pathways. And then she would clean it up because they leave a trail. They leave a little scent trail to where the food source is. So, she was doing all sorts, this is boredom at its height, the COVID. She was doing little trials, like how many times did it take to train the ants to do certain things and, spell names and all sorts of things on the ground. Yeah, Ron, I bet not even you were that bored during COVID, were you? So she's very good at it. She didn't have the ants dancing or doing a wave like at the Coliseum or anything, but I was waiting for that, and finally she got rid of them. But I think that was only because the cat was jealous. If I put 4K into my mouth, I would talk to my insurance agent about insuring my mouth as a classic work of art. I'm glad it came out much better than that for you. Oh my God, that sounds expensive. I do relate to it though, because a friend of mine did go to Mexico, got superb work done. I guess, like Dave told us, I think a few nets ago, once upon a time, the Mexican standards for post-op infections and things like that weren't very good, and it's almost like going now to the restaurant that just poisoned a bunch of people with food poisoning. My friend went down there and said there was just millions of people where he was at, dressed in these little suits, wearing little safety glasses and wearing a mask, and they were constantly cleaning. You would step away from your room for 5 minutes, and there'd be 3 people, and they're cleaning everything. He says, so you can't complain that they don't clean enough. He says everything smells not like Clorox, so they're using some other kind of antiseptic. He says you just can't get away from that. He's surprised that they didn't just throw him off the airplane and like a sheep, and he had to crash into a big tub of it and swim to the other side, because everything was just super clean. The one thing you you can still get for $2 that I can think of is you can still get a bunch of bananas, I think at Costco for $2. They used to be $1. And I remember years ago, I walked in and all I needed was the bananas, and I threw $1 down, and the cashier looked at me and said, "This has never happened to me before." So I guess I made Costco history there sometime back when bananas were $1 a bunch. Now they're $2 a bunch. Well, that's all the exciting things here from Northeast Bellevue. My name is James, WW7N with the Western Washington Amateur Television Society. Let's turn it back to Dave, our net control. Go ahead, Dave.
WU7N, thanks for that. This is Dave, KD7CYM in Lake City. I got 51 degrees, light rain outside. Today, the post office gifted me with a bunch of mail so I could continue collecting information for my income tax. So I've got that all put away for today. Got an appointment for Friday with my tax man to go over that and get that out of the way. But that was kind of nice. And ants, oh yes. Those little ants, sugar ants, had a pantry once in a house, and my wife at that time was canning strawberry jam, and it was down in this basement pantry. And so, about 4 months went by, and went down to get a jar of strawberry jam, and this is where you have the paraffin that you seal the top of the jar with. And they had bored a hole through the paraffin and practically drained the whole container of strawberry jam, and then put out the bait, and that certainly took care of the problem. But they gorged themselves anyway. That was kind of amazing. My other ant story was I was on a stakeout once. We were on a film project looking for a guy stealing cars. And we were in this field over in Bellevue, watching this house kind of behind a sort of an overhang of a berm, and all of a sudden I noticed something was crawling on my leg, and I was looked down, and I was standing on a nest of red ants, and they were deciding they wanted to eat me. So after stomping on that a couple of times, I moved very rapidly about 10 feet away from that area, still keeping behind the berm. So much for stakeouts and red ants. Oh my. And it's so nice to see everybody else here tonight having a good time. I was going to say, Richard with his ant traps, I think that's pretty good. And Lee with ant traps, getting those out of the way. And Bob for gaming, oh my, keeps busy. And so with that, James, I would say, had an issue with carpenter ants if they were getting into that stump, doing their thing, eating it away, if it wasn't termites. But the termites look like just big damp wood ants. They're just big. Carpenter ants are big too. Big black ants, almost a half-inch in diameter, I mean lengthwise. And they're very active. Had episodes with both of those in homes I've owned in the past. So with that, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society, or ID. This is Dave, 87CYM. So we'll move it up to the top of the list. KD7QKU, Ron.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And I guess I didn't say good evening to everyone, but good evening. I can see everybody except Bob. I just see a word that says Bob in a black screen. So anyway, enjoy looking at the rest of you anyway. So ants. I think I always refer to those little black ants as piss ants. I think that's what we always call them, piss ants. But anyway, a friend of ours got him in his motorhome. And the only way we can figure out they got in is up the power cord. Because the motorhome, sits on tires, and it was actually a fifth wheel, I guess. But he figured they came up the post where the plug-in was, and they must have walked the wire into his fifth wheel. Anyway, we were traveling, and he had them all over. I don't remember how he got rid of them, but he had a bunch of them in there. They they got in there in a short period of time. That's for sure. I never tried chocolate ants. They might be pretty good, but they don't really appeal to me, I don't think. So let's see. In that bone, Richard, there was some interference or something. I think maybe James still had his computers on or speaker on or something, but anyway, there was some feedback. So he pulled that little piece of bone out of your jaw. Is that what I understand? So did you get it by eating something that had a bone in it, or did it break off of your jawbone? I mean, I don't know. I didn't hear that, but I'm glad he fixed it, and I'm glad probably gave you some antibiotic or something. So anyway, and what else is going on? Well, Joanne's hearing aids stopped kind of working. She has the kind that they have the battery built into them, and she has a charger. My hearing aids have batteries, and it's pretty easy to swap the battery out, or it's pretty easy to open and close them. You know, you open them to shut them off and close them to turn them on. So anyway, I messed with her hearing aids a little bit today. Neither one of them would come on. She said they'd been like that for 2 days, and so read the book, and it sounded like, you know, either your Bluetooth wasn't turned on, but your Bluetooth was turned on. You were not close enough to the Bluetooth, or anyway, or the batteries were dead. Well, I mean, it's rechargeable batteries, so I had her get her charger. We set them in there for a while. I think there's something wrong with. She said she charged them all night, but I think there's something wrong with the charger or with the hearing aids. So I think we're going to have to make a trip back to Costco and see if they can figure out what's wrong. She hasn't had them very long, so hopefully that's a simple thing. I was having trouble with one of mine. My left one, it wouldn't work very well. It would come on and then it would go off. And I listened to my phone in my hearing aids. So when I'm talking to somebody, and my left ear is my good hearing ear, and my right ear I'm almost deaf. So when my left hearing aid would quit, and I figured, you know, I swapped out the battery a couple times, and I figured it just didn't make contact. So, you know, I'm like you guys, maybe. I get out my pocket knife. And I should have went out to the shop and tried to find a little probe or something. But anyway, I could see the little thing inside when you close the door. The battery sits in this little, shelf, you know, and you push it in. So it makes contact around the battery, but then when you slide it in, it has a little contact that maybe touches the top of the battery. So anyway, I thought I could see it. So I tried to pry it down gently. Hearing aids are pretty small. I actually needed a magnifying glass, but I didn't go get one. And it fixed the problem. So whatever I did must have been the right little thing, and now it makes contact. Because it would just quit, and I could tap my head, and it would start again. And it would quit, and I tap my hearing aid, and it would start again. So I decided it wasn't making contact. So I fixed it, but I couldn't fix hers so far anyway. So I guess that's about it. So anyway, I'll enjoy listening to Bob, but I can't see him. So back to net, KD7QKU.
KD7QKU, let's go to Port Angeles to lead, N7KC.
Okay, leader again, N7KC in Port Angeles. Okay, well, now these ants, they're about 2 millimeters long, maybe 2.5. I don't think they're 3. They're really tiny. They're all about the same size, and they obviously lay down trails because if you watch them, they all travel on the same trail, use the same port, you know, to get in and out. But like I say, can you imagine such a little thing as that having the ability to locate a drop of dried orange juice on the floor. I mean, I don't know where they came from, but it was many ant lengths away, I'll tell you, a long way. And they found it. So now, when I went looking for stuff to deal with these things, I went to YouTube first and nosed around there. And yeah, they're sugar ants. I know what you're talking about, Ron. We had the same ants back in Ohio. But these things are actually are sugar ants, and they are just nuts for sugar. Well, anyway, Amazon had two things. One was by DuPont. It was called Advion. I guess that's the way you pronounce it. Well, it has a nasty chemical in it that is for commercial use only. And when I tried to buy it, they wouldn't ship it to me. So then looking for an alternate, and I went to a place called Maggie's Farm, and they had an ant gel, which they claim worked just as well. It's clear. It's kind of a gel. They're in I got 6 of these little bait traps, and you take a patch off the bottom of them. The ants go in the bottom, go up, and they get into that gel, and then drag it back to the mothership. And presumably that they all somehow partake of it, and if they can't burp, then I guess that's the way it goes. I don't know I think it's boron that's in it. I believe the active ingredient. Anyway, there was no problem about shipping it. And we got 6 of those things in a box. They're not very expensive. And then in addition, I got a squeeze tube of the gel in case I wanted to put a spot of it someplace else. And so anyway, so we're armed up here, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So my time's up. I used up 2 minutes before I can send it back to you, Dave. Casey Lee at Port Angeles. Dave, go ahead.
Casey, thanks for that. Now let's go to Bob, K9PQ.
They are what they call piss ants, and they go for sugar, they look for water, and they love trees. They'll come down, they'll fall out of the trees. They love mobile homes, any vehicle that you go camp in, things like that. And a locally available product, like you described, is called Taro, and it works real well. It's borax and some kind of a sweet liquid that draws them in, and they come for miles for that stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that quick comment in there. K7JDT.
Okay, thanks for that, K7JDT. This is K9PQ. Bob, let me make sure I've got it here. Well, yeah, as far as, and by the way, Ron, you can see me, not on Zoom, but on, over the repeater or on YouTube. I am transmitting my video just directly rather than through Zoom. Yeah, the new coach, Mike McDonald, defensive coordinator of the Ravens. He is the youngest head coach right now, not the youngest ever to be hired, but right now he's the youngest head coach in the NFL, and kind of a wonderkind. And we'll see how well it works. He's did really well this year with the Ravens, beating teams, and hopefully that will translate to our team. The Costco banana story. I did not know the bunches were that cheap. Although I have noticed that they're very cheap at my grocery store compared to apples. I buy both, and they're a lot cheaper than apples, that's for sure. But I heard a banana story, a Costco banana story. It was when I had bought something very little, not very much, probably less than $50 total. And I asked the cashier if that was the lowest total they'd had, and she said, "Oh, no. We get a guy that comes in regularly, and buys one bunch of bananas, and that's it. That's all he buys. And then later he comes back with the ones that have turned brown for a refund. So there you go, a refund on his $1 bunch of bananas. That was like 10 years ago, so it was probably in the $1 days. Quick break. Yeah, as for ants, I know about the sugar ants. I had the carpenter ants when I moved into my place in Seattle. The guy had not kept up with the windows. Many of them had failed and leaked and caused rotten wood. And when I was going in and, pulling out the bad wood and fixing it and replacing it, I discovered a nest of carpenter ants and took care of them. But as far as the boron or borax, according to my brother, this is a real common roach treatment. Just the powder, you just put down the white powder, and it sticks to their feet and their limbs. And as they flex their limbs, it pokes holes in their exterior, and they dehydrate. That was what he told me, and this was from. I guess I should check it on the internet, but at the time, I think it was before I had the capability to check it on the internet. But he was a microbiologist, and so I took him at face value. What else do I have here? There's one other thing I thought. Oh yeah, the bone in the mouth, Richard. That's wild that it was already. I assume it was yours, and that was wild that it was already detached, and he just had to pull it out. $4,000 to pull a bone out. I guess it's. I guess the money's in knowing the right way to pull the bone out, and knowing that you just can pull the bone out. It does seem kind of expensive to pull a loose bone out of your mouth. Okay, back to Ned, K9PQ.
PQ, thanks for that. Let's go to Richard, K7ATS.
Well, I first want to thank Rich, BGI, and Rob for fixing the router and getting our internet connection back and running so we can have show ourselves on YouTube and have people come in like Lee from Port Angeles on Echolink. So thanks again, you guys. I really appreciate all the work you do to keep this up and running. So, and then, yeah, Bob, no, the $4,000 was just a penciled-in estimate for if I really had to have surgery. No, I didn't. In my wildest dreams did I ever think that I had a broken bone that could just be easily plucked out of my gum, So no, I just, like I said, in my wildest dreams, I never thought that was going to happen, but it was pretty nice. And so it was really right next to my molar, and it actually kind of my next to the last molar in the back of my lower jaw, and I think it was number 32, and it's part of your jaw structure, at least for mine, that's almost flush with the biting surface of the molar, and so I'm just, my wild guess is I bit hard on a pistachio shell. I was cracking shells with my hands, but every once in a while one will get by me that is so small, I think it's already been cracked. And so I think it could have been something like that. That's the only thing I can think of. And then it didn't take long for it to, well, I don't know how long it was broken before it surfaced. That's a good, no, I don't really, I have no idea, but I'm just glad that's what it was. And so anyway, that's the answer to that. And as far as other weird doctor things, so I've made an appointment on February 12th to see my orthopedic surgeon for my trigger finger. And so, yeah, no, So it just happens to be the left hand where I need carpal tunnel surgery there anyway. And so when I was making my appointment, I said, well, I have the pinky in my left hand is a trigger finger. And so then I asked, so do you know what I mean when I say trigger finger? Because that's what the doctor described it to me. And she goes, oh yeah, right away. And I go, do they really call it a pinky? She says, oh yeah, they really do call it a pinky. So that was all pretty interesting. So I see the physician's assistant on the 12th, and if I can't have the surgery the first week of March, I'll delay it a month. So that's how that goes. And let's see. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask Lee about the Olympic snowpack. I'm kind of worried about that because I know how important it is for Lee's water supply in late summer especially. Hopefully, if it's bad again, hopefully it won't be worse than last summer. That's hard to imagine, but I guess anything's possible. Could even happen here, and on the west side as well. A new form of measurement. You got inches, millimeters, and ant lengths. So many ant lengths away. That's a great one. I mean, I've never heard that before. So thanks for that, and that new method of measuring things. I'll remember that for sure. So with that, K7ITX back to net control.
K7ITX, thanks for that. Let's go to Jim, N7QO in Covington.
N7QO, thank you, Dave. Well, Jim, ants mean rotten wood. Thanks for mentioning that. I will see if I can find any around here the next time I come up with some of those larger ants. Yeah, I kind of knew that. It just never really registered with me. And you have a friend who is training ants. Wow, I think someone needs a new hobby. That's wow. They couldn't pay me enough to do that. Well, okay, they could pay me enough, but it would have to be a lot. Dave, thanks for the reminder about income tax. I should see how much more stuff I have to come. I definitely don't have all the information I need yet. Ron, I heard you say all you got to do is kind of whap yourself on the side of the head sometimes and your hearing aid will start working. Well, don't do that with Joanne. She might not appreciate that, but or misinterpret it there. And good luck with them. I have a couple of friends who definitely have problems with their hearing aids. It seems to me you either luck out and get some good ones, or you don't luck out and get some which require a lot of work until you can find some that are better. Lee, yeah, I've seen ants following trails before too. They must put something down, but you bring up an interesting point. If one finds a little drop of juice somewhere, how does he notify all his buddies that all they have to do is follow his trail, and at the end of the trail will be a buffet for them? It's not like the little guys carry walkie-talkies or something, but kind of amazing. The critters are so tiny. Kind of interesting how they work. Bob, coach from the Ravens. Yeah, I watched the 2 games this past weekend, and that Raven game, I was amused by that. It seems like the later in the game it got, the more aggressively everyone was playing, I found it kind of amusing anyway. Anyway, we'll see what happens next game. Oh, Dick, pistachios. Yeah. You know, at Costco they sell bags of pistachios, but they also sell bags of shelled pistachios, and that's what I get. I can't say that I've never had a shelled pistachio that didn't have a piece of a shell in there, but it's worth getting the shelled ones, I think. It's just so much of a pain in the butt. You have to work too hard to shell the nuts in order to eat them. Just food for thought. Back to you, Dave, N7QO.
QO. Yeah, it's time for an ID. This is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7CYM. Let's move on to James, WU7N.
I'm going to try and share something here. I saw something that I thought was kind of interesting. Oops, it's gone away. Hang on one. The entrepreneurship at its finest. This is a chocolate company, and this lady found out that lemon ants in the Amazon are used for seasoning. That is a bowl of the ants. I don't know how they harvest them or collect them. They probably just put a little sugar in the bowl and they all pile in. But she makes chocolate flavored with these ants, and it's kind of an interesting TOAKchocolate.com. There's a video that actually shows her making these ant chocolates and selling them, and I went, wow, that's amazing. So there's Toak chocolate ants. Thought you guys might appreciate that. The important thing to remember, you know, if you have loose bones in your mouth, is floss a lot, and that'll take care of that. It's a lot cheaper than the oral surgery, maybe. I'm not sure. Well, I'm just so glad. I guess I could say to Richard, I'm so glad everything came out okay. Is that what you say to someone in that situation? Yeah. But anyway, glad to hear it went well. I remember the most horrific look about the bunches of bananas. I was at Costco on a contract and just walking around the aisles there, and I see these people from India, and they have this look of utter and complete horror on their face. And the first thing that occurred to me is, uh-oh, somebody's got hurt or something really bad has happened here, so I kind of scurried over there to see what they were looking at. Well, that particular Costco was experimenting with, I don't know what you call it, like a garbaginator robot kind of thing. And they were throwing all of these bananas that were just, you know, yellow ripe bananas, but, I mean, Costco sells them green. Throwing these massive numbers of bananas into this garbage thing, and the robot was eating them all up, and these people from India were just looking at this like, this is the most horrible thing they've ever seen in their life. This huge amount of food being destroyed in this way. And I will not forget that look. And not really very funny, I guess. See here, we've got 7 minutes at the top of the hour, so this is James, Whiskey Uniform 7 November. Let me turn it back to our net control, Dave.
And this is Dave, KD7CYM. Oh man, bananas. I remember once I had built a huge dehydrator for fruit, and we were doing fruit leathers. But then I'd gone to the grocery store, and they had cases of bananas they were trying to get rid of, and it was like, you take them, they're free. So I took a whole case of bananas and then cut them up and put them in a dehydrator. Overnight, it was like the big banana took over the whole house. The fumes of dehydrated bananas was just overwhelming. but once they were dehydrated, they were really good and crunchy. So I enjoyed that very much. And the ongoing whatever is in your gums. I had a wisdom tooth withdrawal, many years ago. And after that wisdom tooth came out, there was this little sharpness that was kind of off to the side in the gums that showed up about, maybe about 2 years later. And so it was a bone fragment, not a bone fragment, but a tooth fragment from when they extracted the tooth. And so the dentist was able to just pick that out of the gum, and that took care of it. But that was also a very painful situation once it broke through the gum layer. So anyway, I survived with that, and it's always interesting to see what happens. And I don't have anything else to say at this point, so I'm going to send it back up to Ron, KD7QKU.
KD7QKU here again. Well, talking about Costco, I don't know if all of you saw it or not, but apparently there was a lady who returned a couch after she had had it 2.5 years. She carted it into Costco and taken it into the return desk and asked them for her money back. And according to the article, they gave it to her. And she'd had it too, and she didn't have the receipt either. And they looked it up on the computer and found it. They said Costco has a pretty liberal return policy, but they thought that lady was kind of taking advantage of it. And Richard, so they're going to replace the joint in your little finger. That's about the only way they can fix it, as far as I know. So they'll do a joint replacement. What will they do? It's the joint must be eroded with arthritis, and it just goes snap, snap, snap. So my fingers, do the same thing, Richard. Because I've had, I don't know if you can see how crooked they are, but that's what they told me they would do if I asked them to fix them. They'd replace the joints. And I didn't think I wanted that done. So good luck on that. And talking about stuff. So a friend of mine was hunting bears, and so he wanted bear bait for his, put in a tub, a drum, so the bear could come and eat it, and they could shoot the bear. But anyway, so he went over to one of the, I don't remember which bakery or place it was now, but so he got like a half a pickup load of this bread and rolls and these little cakes, these little pies that they have in paper. They have little pies, and so as we were putting the stuff in the bear trap, we were eating it. I mean, it was really good. And so we didn't take the pies out of the paper wrappers, and the bears ate them, paper and all, and then in the bear poop a few days later, where the bears that came in, sure enough, they're the paper wrappers. We thought that was kind of funny. So anyway, oh yeah, and how many of, I just have a question. I would need another computer if I see Bob, because I'm using this computer for Zoom, or I'd have to go in the other room where my ATV station is. Can everybody else see Bob? Do you guys see him? James doesn't see him. Richard sees him. Do you see him, Lee? You see Bob? No, Bob. Lee doesn't see it. Dave, do you see Bob? No, you don't see him either. So I guess there's only one of us that sees you, Bob. So anyway, I just was curious. All right, back to net, KD7QKU.
QKU. I guess you have to be a little bit literary. You can read Bob on Bob's site. The letters are very, very plain, but you have to learn to read that. You can't see the picture, just have to read the name. So let's go on to Lee, N7KC.
Okay, very good. Well, this is time to close down. So enjoyed the net. Good seeing you guys again. And we'll see you at the meeting Saturday morning. N7KC, Lee in Port Angeles. Back to you, Dave.
WW7KC. Well, we got about 30 seconds. Let's see if Bob wants to take the mic. K9PQ.
Yeah, I'll take the mic, and I will, for all of you people that are not watching the output of the repeater, I am now visible on Zoom. I mean, you know my attitude on this. If we're going to do this, why not just have a Zoom meeting and, forget about ham radio altogether? But that's the story for another time. Okay, well, I did have one other thing. Oh, but I don't have time. I'll just say I like the power source switch comment, James, and yeah, good luck with the robot, fighting you on whether you can actually remove the power source. You might try to get to the battery compartment there. Okay, back to net, K9PQ.
And this is the end of the net, terminating WW7ATS, Western Washington Amateur Television Society net on the 08 machine. We'd like to thank the SeaTac Repeater Association for letting us use WW7STR's repeater 147.08 for our voice transmissions. So with that, terminating the net at 9 o'clock. This is Dave, KD7CYM.
7KC disconnected. KK7